Hey, folks. Welcome into the Bleacher Nation Cubs podcast. I am Brett Taylor with Michael Cerami here to talk Cubs, courtesy of our presenting sponsor, Ankin Law, 312-6 million injury law made personal. Michael, we're doing this little different than usual. This is actually live. Our producer, Addison, is out chilling, and so we're covering this. Michael's handling the buttons, and so to the extent there are mistakes in this podcast, you will need to direct your grievances to Michael, who is wearing three hats, actually, if you count the one that's literally on his head right now. So do you want to do any pre-apologies, Michael?
No, well, I thought you were going to say, blame our producer. The lazy Pirates fan bum is out and left me all these buttons to click. And for however much you think we know about the Cubs, maybe not a lot. Maybe you listen, you hate listen to us. This is weirdly terrifying. I'm worried I'm going to click end and publish or something. This is a live recording, live pod, but we didn't promote it because I didn't want anyone here while we were doing this, even though you could participate. I just wanted to use it as a way to easily produce this podcast. So yeah, we're doing our best. Sorry, Ankin, but also you're welcome. Now you're getting podcast hosts and producers. So we're doing great.
And if we do okay, maybe in the future we can do a live one that's actually planned to be live and have folks participate. And I mean, when we record, it's not as if I don't think there's a ton of post recording, editing, chop down work, but it's in the back of my head, the intrusive thought of don't say the F word, don't say the F word, don't say the F word. Okay. Thankfully,
that's the F word.
Yeah. Thankfully, the Cubs had a pretty good week of baseball, so the F bombs might be less instinctive than they would be otherwise. The Cubs, of course, kicked off this series against the Brewers with a win and took 3 of 4 from the Pirates over the weekend. And I want to mention that to set up a bit of a discussion. So those wins against the Pirates, they were all close wins, and the loss was close as well. And some of that was matchup related. Cubs did, they had to face Paul Skeens. Some of it was weather related. It was not a particularly friendly weekend at Wrigley Field in terms of wind direction and temperature and spittle of rain. Nevertheless, it felt like it was a little harder when the offense struggled in that series to beg off like we had been for the preceding 2 weeks and say, well, they're facing some of the best pitchers in baseball. It's fine. Didn't raise to a level of concern for me necessarily, and I have thoughts on why that is, but I wanted to get your take because it's not like they blew up on offense on Monday either against the Brewers. So what's your concern level on the offense? Did it change over the past week, or are you still landing where you were before?
I mean, well, I wrote about it. So, okay, to just to recap, because I have it here, and I think it's good to just keep saying this. The Cubs faced from June 1st through the 14th, Mackenzie Gore, Tarek Skubal, Jack Flaherty, Zach Wheeler, Jesus Luzardo, and Paul Skeens. But the other 3 Pirates pitchers, because Andrew Heaney is pretty good, but he's not Paul Skeens. If we start including Andrew Heaney as the well, you can't hit him, then you're Jack Flaherty's already listen, he's a good pitcher, but that's the line. But the Brewers starters, I mean, I think the Cubs are a little lucky to not have to get, I don't know how to even say his fault, Mizorowski or whatever. Maybe he was going to walk a ton of guys, who knows? Or is Peralta starting today? Actually, now that I think about it, we don't know yet. It still says TBD.
Peralta was scheduled.
He was
today,
supposed to start.
While you talk, yeah, I'm going to see if they switched it while you.
Check it out. I can keep going. But
I'm sure they're sticking.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's finally at a point where it's fair to say that the offense was both facing tough pitching and then also is maybe struggling, right? And I think that the difference is, had there been less dominant pitching, we might not have noticed some of these more struggling outings because they might have been interspersed with games where they scored a lot of runs. But you're setting the baseline with those 6 or 7 starters as like, this is impossible to hit. Now the variance is only in the other games. And so you're not, it's easier to stand out because then it becomes a bigger stretch. So I think that's kind of what's happened, because that combined with Wrigley not playing well this month, with wind blowing in a lot and stuff, is probably all that's happening. But I wrote about it in the lineup 2 days ago. And then of course, Kyle Tucker popped off. Tucker had cooled off considerably, and he is the focal point of the Cubs offense. For as many highlights as PCA creates, and as good of a hitter Seiya Suzuki has been, and as strong as Michael Busch is against righties, Kyle Tucker is, even in his not best season, still the best offensive player on the Cubs. And he had cooled off, and he ran into that wall in right field. I think in Miami, he slid into the base and jammed his finger. He missed a game on Sunday. He had been off. And I think that is a big reason why the offense felt a little lifeless. And his off, for what it's worth, is still like Ian Happ's average. Like, he's like a 115 weighted runs created plus guy when he's off. But that's a huge difference when you rely on him for the consistency, and it wasn't there. So you add all those factors up, and it's like, there was some bad weather, there was some tough pitching, and also I think the Cubs' best hitter had cooled off, maybe injury related, maybe not, but that's kind of where I am. So I think we'll be fine going forward, but it was a tough stretch, and pretending it wasn't, I don't think is really helpful to anyone.
Yeah. And I would add, 2 things have stood out to me over the past few weeks in terms of how you generate offense and what has been missing for the Cubs. For a long time, the Cubs were extraordinarily good with runners in scoring position. It's funny, we only ever talk about how a team does with runners in scoring position when things are going badly. You don't ever really notice when a team is sort of overperforming in those situations. And the Cubs, for most of this season, had been extraordinarily good in those situations. And when it's happening, you just kind of chalk it up to, well, they just have a really good offense. Like, wow, they did it again. What a great offense. It's never, there's probably a little bit of sort of natural variance within those performances. And so I think there's a little bit of a stretch where they just, the hits didn't fall with guys on base. Some of that due to the pitching, some of that due to perhaps guys not feeling 100%, whatever, any number of real reasons interspersed with just sequencing luck. But that can really drive your offense down, because innings don't get extended. The pressure's not on the pitcher as much. And of course, runs aren't getting on the board. And then the other thing I noticed is just the home run rate was down a little bit the last few weeks. And it was nice to see, of course, Seiya and PCA resume their Homer Brothers act on Monday.
What is the deal with that? How are they doing it?
I know
they do it a lot.
We're gonna have to, at some point, we're going to have to count how many times it's happened where they have homered in the same game.
I think it's the next time it happens, it's going to be a story, because I noticed it before the most recent time, which means the time before that wasn't the first time. You know what I mean? Right. So I don't know.
And then they hadn't homered. The Cubs, sort of in general, were not homering for 3, 4, 5 days. And then both of them homer on the same day, so it definitely stands out. And so those are 2 areas that I think are skill related. Hits with runners in scoring position and home runs. They are skill related, but they are what?
I can pull up a comment live on the air, and I don't know if this is right, but he says, I believe it's happened 5 times. So we're rolling with it.
That's crazy though, that he's even aware that we're recording live.
There's 6 people watching.
That's crazy. Incredible. They must have gotten an alert. And
or so my mom.
Anyway, those are 2
her 5 friends.
Those are 2 things that are skill related: hits with runners in scoring position and home runs. However, they are also things that disproportionately swing offense in a game and have a lot of natural variance. A fly ball doesn't go an extra foot, and So I think I would expect those things to normalize in the coming weeks, and we're gonna, part of that story will be, wow, the Cubs offense turned it around, and that'll be true probably to some extent, but it'll also just be a little bit of luck and variance. So switching from that, speaking of the home runs, PCA's 452 foot tank off the video board. I don't know. It felt wrong not to mention PCA after his performance on Monday, where he makes just sort of that was like, let me put it this way. Weird comparison, but okay. Do you know what a Nico Horner hit looks like? When I say a Nico Horner hit, you conjure an image, right? It's him slapping one to right field. It's like
a foot above the zone, and he's smacking it the other way.
Exactly. It's just what you think of. When I think of a PCA catch, that catch on Monday, when someone would say a PCA catch, I think about him coming from like out of the screen into a gap, bleeding into right field or left field, and then ultimately not having to full out extend, hit the turf, dive for a ball that has like a 10% catch probability, that because he's just so fast to it. And that one, I believe, was a 5% catch probability. And yeah, he went to the ground, but it wasn't full extension. He probably could have gotten another 3 or 4 feet. And yet everyone there watching can tell, just because of the way the ball came off the bat, what an unbelievable catch that was. Like you saw the pitcher's face. Every time you see the pitcher's face after a catch like that, they're just like a mixture of thrilled and
I was going to put together a montage of just reactions to PCA
That's
catches. Yeah, that was incredible. That entire sequence. I mean, are you going to lead this into the homer, like that whole 8th inning PCA performance?
Just that
the point, or
just that it's incredible to see a player who is capable of making a play like that in the field and hitting a ball like that. Even setting aside the fact that he did them both within 4 minutes of each other, but just to be to physically be a human able to do those two things is just, I don't know. It's not something we see too often. Not to continue to drop the Javi Baez comp, but that's who it makes me think of.
Jed Hoyer, I heard on, I don't know, he's been doing his rounds lately. It absolutely cracks me up because he has been getting so much praise for the PCA trade. And he's just, every time he's on like MLB Network or ESPN 1000 or 670 The Score or the national, podcast with John Heyman or Ken Rosenthal, they're always like, wow, like, how'd you know about PCA? Like, what a great, and he's like, what are you going to do? Like, I'm just the man. And it's very deserved because he got a good trade, even though I don't think PCA was their first target. So to that end,
it's a pitcher who hasn't pitched.
Who they took off the record exactly, which kind of reminds me of when we traded for Kyle Hendricks and Ryan Dempster. Initially, there was a different player from the
They did a trade.
And Dempster vetoed it, and then they pivoted and got Hendricks, and it was like, wow, what a revelation. It's like, okay, well, it's not who they wanted. So, but God bless. That 8th inning, him doing that, him making that catch and then hitting that home run, and both individually spectacular things to see, and also critical game moments in a lot of ways. And so I think I heard Pat Hughes say something like, when he called it, it was like, I feel like I'm watching a movie that stars PCA right now, cause he was and it's like, man, what a wonderful characterization of what he's doing. And it's just incredible and so exciting to not only have a team that's playing this well, but to have a player like PCA that has captured the national spotlight and attention. It feels good. I guess I attach like my pride of the Cubs to, and this is probably not healthy, but it's not just about how often they're winning, but like how well other teams and baseball fans think of them. And in 2016, like coming into the year, they were like the best team, everyone was sick of hearing about them type of thing in the NL Central, at least. The rest of the country was pretty okay with it. And that I just remember that feeling of like, yes, we are the Cubs and this is awesome. And we are awesome. And this is good. And that's how PCA is making me feel right now, is that like people are so excited to see him play. And then he goes and does something like that is not just visually impressive, but actually helped the Cubs like directly win the game within a matter of 5 minutes, which you never get in baseball because that is not how baseball is played. It's a long, slow, drawn out thing where you might not see the same guy on the screen for a while. So I don't know. That stood out to me. Do you have any like what's your like PCA vibe-o-meter in the like nationally? Like, are you feeling the same?
Well,
you're seeing it, right? He's everywhere.
I think the answer is in the initial All-Star voting results that came out this past week as well, where PCA is the leading vote getter in the outfield, and he trails in the NL. Like, what he has more votes than anyone in baseball except for Shohei Ohtani, okay, Aaron Judge, okay, and Freddie Freeman, who that may not sound like an okay, but he's a superstar player on the most popular team in the country. So I get it. And then PCA. PCA has substantially more votes than Kyle Tucker, who is the quote star on this very same Cubs team. And
he's not the star of this team, which is crazy.
Right. And
he might be the best player. He's not the star of the Cubs.
Yeah, no, I was texting, some buddies were texting about Chicago stars, right? And sort of that the city does not, it's just been a while since they've had a lot of stars, and it's wonderful to see that. And I jokingly texted like that Kyle Tucker's in the corner kicking rocks. But you know, it's true that there's something different between being a very, very good player and being a star. And that's mostly narrative. It's mostly just vibe. It's what we feel. It's what we see when we watch the game. It's what we hear in the conversation. It's all of these things. And PCA checks all those boxes. And I think,
it's like why Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani are worth that extra little bit of money. It's real. They sell tickets. They get people talking. I have casual Cubs fan friends that are like, wow, this PCA guy is like incredible. Like, this is so cool. And it's like, yeah, I mean, yes. And nobody has ever asked me about Kyle Tucker. And like, that's not a shot at Kyle Tucker. He is the best player on the Cubs, probably. Like, it's probably him right now. Maybe PCA will, be consistent enough to earn that title. If you're taking a player for just 1 year, whatever. I don't even want to get into that debate. That's not what I'm trying to, the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm making is PCA is the face of the franchise right now. I mean, who else would it be? It's him. And the Cubs have him for a long time. I see sometimes like people being like, well, I'll buy my PCA jersey when they extend him. I'm like, don't worry. He got at least another 5 years.
He's not going anywhere.
Yeah. So that's pretty good. Do you think that they need to revisit those extension talks sooner than later? I don't mean in season at all, but I mean like in the offseason, like, do you think they're going to be like, okay, let's not mess around and try to just get this done? Or because they did try. I mean, that is
sure. I think there'll be a check-in. I think it's going to be pretty hard to have a meeting of the minds coming off the year he's probably about to have when he's so far from free agency, still far from arbitration at that point, compared to the season he will have probably just put together. I think it's going to be almost impossible to make a deal that makes sense for both sides at that point. And I think more likely is they might chat, but I think they probably see how next season plays out. And he's then a year away from arbitration. And then you start to get a better idea for what might be plausible or not. And from the Cubs,
but that might cost you money though, right? That could cost you.
But it's true in both directions, right? It's it's possible he is a repeat 7-win player the next 2 years, and then you can't sign him for anything shy of 250 million or 300 plus the Tatis deal. Or it could be that, some things settle and it's like, oh, okay, no, he's still a very, very good player. I mean, I think we're getting far afield because then there's a whole other conversation of like the disparity between what we are seeing PCA do right now, superstar performance, top 5 player in baseball performance, compared to what do we expect him to be over the next 5 years. And we've seen even with like a Corbin Carroll, who put together a stretch, similarly young, in a similar situation. He put together a stretch of the Diamondbacks where it was like, whoa, top 5 player in baseball. And then he had a huge step back thereafter. And he's reestablishing himself again as that level.
Yeah.
And I think the point there only is enjoy what's happening while it's happening.
Yeah.
And let's not try to project out anything going forward, good or bad. Like, it's just not worth it. And I think PCA himself would even say this too. It's like, hey, I'm just trying to play the season in front of me. And I think we could probably take something away from that and say, you know what, let's just enjoy. He's going to be an all-star. The Cubs are going to be in the playoffs. He's doing things like he did on Monday on the regular. And so I'm just going to enjoy that. And then the offseason will be a great time. Talk about projections, talk about contracts, all that kind of stuff.
Well, okay. I want to change the topic slightly because I want to make a point, but I want to tee you up first to talk about it first. So you've been pointing out that the Cubs have the best record in the National League today, at least by winning percentage. I think the Dodgers
as of this moment,
more
as of this fractional moment.
Yeah. So, well, let me just make my point and then you can respond and you can decide if I'm being unfair or not. But Cubs have the best record in the National League as of this moment, and it's June 19th. Like that's a significant chunk of the season. So, kudos to them. Kudos to Jed for building this team, and also for them to be able to do it without Justin Steele and Shota Imanaga for like a giant chunk of the season is even more impressive, right? Those are their not just 2 starting pitchers, they're 2 best starting pitchers. Okay. So all that is great and excellent. And I see a lot of love for Jed out there, and it's deserved because this is a good team and that's cool and so on and so forth. I also see the fact that the Cubs are this good as an indictment on the front office and ownership for not doing even more this offseason. This is not a good thing that they've been this good without going all in over the offseason. It's a bad thing because had they signed or traded for or whatever, some of the additional players that we knew were available and could have helped this team, they'd be in an even better place. But they didn't, and they're being rewarded for that nonetheless. And I don't like that. That's the message that, like, look at, we didn't go get Bregman or whatever. I don't care about him specifically. There's a lot of other options. There were starting pitchers in free agency and in trade that they didn't even consider, and others that they did consider and then nixed for one reason or another and were wrong about. And so if you end up being this good and you didn't do those things, I don't think it's like a butterfly wings thing where they would have been worse somehow by having Max Fried or Jesus Luzardo or Alex Bregman, or there's literally a ton of other guys. And I don't want to let them off the hook for not doing what we all said that they should have done because it looked like they could have been this good. So where do you feel? Is that unfair? Am I completely being unfair?
No. Well, I mean, I wonder how many people will agree with us. No, I don't think it's unfair. I think an immediate response would be, well, the top positional guy they could have gotten was Bregman. He's hurt. He's going to miss multiple months. The top starting pitcher was Corbin Burns. His elbow popped. He didn't even help the Diamondbacks at all. And it's true that whatever moves you make in the offseason, even setting aside those 2 specific players, it can unfold in a way during your season that best laid plans don't always result in and that's not even a butterfly wings comment. That's more the Cubs could have done the things that you're saying, and those guys could have gotten hurt or underperformed anyway, and it wouldn't have mattered to what they're doing, right? But Michael's point, if I'm hearing you correctly, is more that they didn't do those things, and they're still succeeding, and therefore it almost rewards bad behavior. Right, is sort of the argument. And I'm quite sure some folks with the Cubs would take an issue with that, but a lot of I think Jed is not wrong when he says for teams to be really, really good, most teams that are really, really good have young-ish players who break out and have put up huge seasons. He has said that for many years. Yeah, he's not wrong. You go through the years, and that's true. But he also has said no one could quite have predicted that PCA was going to be this good. was going to
Exactly. He
contribute
says that all the
this
time.
much. And so it's a little bit of having your cake and eating it too, right?
Exactly.
Because
God,
because
you
the
nailed
point
it.
of the point of making the significant moves in the offseason isn't just about the impact that it has. It's also about creating a floor. It's also about protecting against risk. It's also about, you look at the Cubs, the bench moves that they made. They were economical in their bench moves this offseason, and the bench has produced like nothing.
Nothing.
So it's not all wins for in terms of what the Cubs chose to do. Now, that said, we had this conversation, and this was about the bullpen specifically, but we had this conversation either last pod or the one before, that it's almost in the Cubs model now to plan on doing things in season that will fundamentally help the team. We'll see how repeatable that is over the next X number of years. And specifically, what I think about is trade season has arrived, and I'm thinking about, we know the Cubs are going to need to make an impact in their starting rotation. We know there was a need there before the season began at the front of the rotation. We know that having lost Justin Steele, Shota Imanaga hopefully comes back and is as good as he was last year, but we'll see. We know that need has only grown. Mm-hmm. And I think it's fair to discuss whether did the Cubs put their back against the wall in this regard at trade season by not making a move in the rotation in the offseason, or did they sort of cleverly punt, to when they could see where they stood, see what kind of impact they need, see how many they need, and leave it for the trade deadline.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think that one I'm more inclined to, if they get it right, I'd probably be more inclined to give credit rather than say they got lucky. Because one, they've done unseason moves with success, especially on the pitching side for a while now. Two, didn't love this crop this offseason of starting pitchers, like you really two change teams that you're like, wish they'd Luzardo and Fried. That's really it.
I know, but wait, pause there for a second. Pause there for 1 second. Luzardo is a guy that they were heavily attached to, had a trade for, and then didn't do it. And Max Fried was the number one connected free agent to the Cubs going into the season. The two guys were the best two guys. And then the thing they need the most.
Like they were correct, right?
Yeah.
But the deal Fried got, they were never going to sign that deal. They were never in a million years going to sign the deal Fried got. And here's the question, but we'll see going forward, is whatever happens after the trade deadline, do you look at the impact Fried has given the Yankees and then gives the Yankees thereafter, and the deal in terms of like what he will cost them going forward compared to whatever it is that the Cubs do at the deadline and what it costs them and the impact. Yeah. And I think that'll be fair to judge. I think it'll be fair to say, okay, did they proceed correctly with respect to the rotation? Given the options that were available, either to make the huge move in the offseason that comes with a super long commitment, or wait for the deadline and rely on depth in advance. Because we should give credit on the rotation side that for as much as we were saying in the offseason they need an impact starter, we did believe they had quality depth.
Yeah, they do.
And they weren't wrong. We weren't wrong. That has shown up.
I just fear that like we're going to end up getting to the deadline and they're going to trade like Owen Casey, which, okay, I'm not saying, okay, fine. He might be a great player. We just talked about how he was breaking out yesterday, but like, and like a Jackson Wiggins, right? And it's like, and then you get, let's say
don't trade.
I know. And say it's like in this amazing case scenario, they get Chris Sale, who continues to pitch like an ace and yada, yada, yada. It's like, or you could have just spent money on Fried and then you could keep Jackson Wiggins and then you have a cheap starter in a year and a half who's maybe really good. And you still have Owen Casey to do something like I get it. Sure. I get it. But it's never, you never get to fairly balance it because it's like money on one hand and then the prospects that you save by not getting the guy on the other hand. And it all comes down to, and again, this is just Jed's MO and it's worked for him in a lot of ways in the past. And sometimes it costs him, is that this whole concept of just like waiting as long as possible to make the decision so you don't make a bad decision is good. It prevents you from not making bad decisions, but it also stops you from getting lucky and making a home run decision that you wouldn't have, had the opportunity to do otherwise. It in a lot of ways, it reminds me exactly of what happened with PCA. You offered him $75 million. It was a fair deal 3 years ago for a guy like that, maybe. And it's like within the range of like, yeah, that was an appropriate amount to offer on an extension, right? Something like that. Had you offered him $125 million, he's probably a Cub signed right now. And it's like, yeah, was that the wrong amount of money to offer him at the time? Maybe. Now, assuredly no, because there's no way he's signing for that 2 months later. I'm not saying you need to just keep guessing at the right, but sometimes a little bit additional risk pays off the exact opposite way. And you could have had PCA for 1 extra year of control and cost control through, 2032 or whatever it is, And so that's kind of what I'm saying with these signings. It's like, sometimes you miss out on the upside by limiting your risk. And that seems to be his approach. And, it worked out this year because PCA is playing like an MVP candidate, which even he wouldn't have bet on. So I don't know.
To which Jed says, hey, I took on extra risk when I gave Matthew Boyd a second year on a deal that everybody thought was crazy in order to sign him. So see, I did it. Yeah, I think we'll leave it there because I do think it's one of those that we'll have to evaluate after the fact. But it bleeds a little into the game today for funsies. Let me
do my little thing.
Yeah, set it up.
Okay, I pulled up Feldco. I'm a producer. Feldco, the home renewal experts. Bleacher Nation is proud to partner with Feldco. For almost 50 years, Feldco has been transforming Chicagoland homes with their windows, siding, doors, and roofing. Feldco is family owned and prides themselves on delighting their customers with products made in the With products made in the U.S. and designed specifically for the Midwest, Feldco offers the perfect balance of beauty and energy efficiency. I think in the future, Brett, I want you to like pick a character, like come up with a character, and I have to read that ad read as whatever that
as
character
the character
is. Like Chicago, the Bears type of guy or whatever. Just don't get me in trouble.
Kermit the Frog.
There you go. Exactly. All right. So that was Feldco. They're sponsoring our game of the week, and Brett's got it for us this week. What's going on?
Okay. Easy one this week to commemorate what I think of as the start of trade season. Of course, we know typically deals don't get done in large part until after the draft and the All-Star break mid-July, though read Michael's piece on Jed Hoyer's comments that perhaps they might move a little earlier this year. We'll see. But I like to think then the month ahead of the All-Star break is when you really start to see the rumors kick up, teams committing a little bit more to their path, knowing they need to be scouting in this area or that area. And so the rumors start to take on a little more meat starting about mid-June on. And so to that end, I wanted to play a little game called Forced Trades. We're going to turn on Forced Trades for Michael the GM, and simply going to ask, this is today, real world baseball, but you get to force the trade. I want 3 trades from anywhere in baseball that you are forcing to happen for the Cubs. And that's it. That's the request. Give me 3 trades, 3 targets, 3 whatever. Just force them.
Oh, but it has to be real. I can't be like the Dodgers trade Shohei Ohtani to the Cubs.
You can do it's 3 players, and yes, you can be as unrealistic as you want because that's the fun. We did a version of this sort of with past couple players that was like, be realistic. No. I want to hear that. No. We're going to squeeze this guy in. I want to hear it.
Okay. Oh my God. I wish I actually, for everyone listening out there, you might be able to come up with better ones when you're not on the spot and you're sitting in your car listening to this.
Like, it's hard when it's live. It is.
If I had time to go and look, like I'd be like, which freaking third baseman do I want right now or something like to help the Cubs this, you know what I mean? Like, but I think that as I sit here and I'm anticipating a Tigers Cubs World Series repeat of 1945, right? That was the
look at you
World Series. Look at that. That would be a fun one. The Cubs are going to acquire Tarek Skubal. And right, that's number one. He's just the most incredible pitcher right now. And I think I said this on last pod. I don't know if he's going to be like the consistently top pitcher in baseball. But right now for this season, outside of like maybe Skeens, he seems like the guy. And not only do the Cubs need a guy exactly like him, his profile, everything about him, but when he is starting against the Tigers in the World Series, as opposed to against the Cubs, I think we'll be even happier. So we get him, and you know what? They can have Jefferson Rojas. We'll give him a guy with a little upside.
Oh, you're even like, oh gosh, you're way more generous than I would be.
I mean, I could give them, John Birdie if they need a bench piece. So I'm adding Skubal to the roster. Give me 1 second. I want to see. So that's number one. I'm gonna try to spread this out nicely too. So then, I don't want Hader. I don't want Chapman. God, is there even like a? I'm gonna flip this just on you. Is there that's the closer in baseball right now? Because I kind of feel like it's lacking.
Not really, because the guy who gets the headlines is Mason Miller.
But that was last year.
He's had some. He's had some up and downs.
The Robert Suarez is the saves leader.
You're forcing trades, so you could acquire Skeens to be your closer. I'm just saying you can do.
No, I'm gonna try to do a starter. Like, God. You know what's a bummer? Now that I'm looking at the save leaders, Robert Suarez was a rumored Cubs trade target, but they never really entertained trading him. Carlos Estevez was a free agent target that I wrote about all the time that they should have gotten. Kyle Finnegan, super cheap and super available, was a Cubs target. And then haters, whatever. So, I think I'll take Suarez. I think we're going to have to make a trade with the Padres. They've decided, listen, the Giants are getting better. The Dodgers are good. We can't possibly win the division, and entering as the third wild card team isn't, all that it's cracked up to be. So they're going to trade us Robert Suarez. We have one of the best starters and now one of the best closers in the game to help us prepare for the inevitable, playoff series. And then lastly, oh my God, I know the answer for my final point here. So we get Skubal, we get Suarez, and then for our third and final piece, the Cubs will trade for Cal Raleigh to be their catcher. And
he's been a beast.
That's their catcher. Midseason trades for catchers are tough, but the Cubs have had good catcher production. Don't get me wrong. I love Amaya and Carson Kelly, but Kelly has fallen off. Amaya's hurt. I think the catcher position has been a little bit more, lacking of late. Although, what's his name is
Reese McGuire's
playing kind of great. You love to see a guy just take advantage of those opportunities. I'm trying to avoid so many words that could be double entendres as he's smacking it.
We'll focus on Cal. We'll focus on Cal Raleigh and just say Michael really wants to get the big dumper. That is his nickname. That's his real nickname.
Wait, is it really the big dumper? Is his real nickname?
It's the big dumper.
I did not know that. About his
he's got a gigantic dumper. Wait, you know about baseball butt? Yes.
Yes.
Baseball butt.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, so much so that my wife's been watching a lot more baseball just lately because I've had it on, and she'll be like, that guy's got a huge butt. I go, it's baseball butt. And she was like, what? I was like, you don't know about baseball butt? It's like a thing. Do you guess which player on the Cubs she was talking about? She went, wow, he's got a big butt.
Was it Ian Happ?
Yep.
I was going to say, are we allowed to be? Yeah, I check out Ian's giant butt every now and again. Butt. Yeah. No, it's because there's a lot of power.
This is what happens when you go live with a podcast. Anything can happen. You talk about butts. I did not know his nickname was the big dumper, but he is my third piece. I think he rounds out the offense. He's a great catcher. Then you have Suarez and you have Skubal. And those are my three pieces that like just complete this team entirely. I think the alternative is like, sure, I could go like Skeens, Skubal, and who would be my third?
Aaron Judge.
Pitcher.
Those were my three.
Was it Skeens, Skubal, Judge?
Yeah.
But so where are you playing Judge? I was trying to like not replace. I know, obviously, it doesn't matter. Obviously,
and I know. I mean,
I was trying to like,
No. It's just as fun to play it that way, or to do if it's Aaron Judge, I don't know. Sorry, Ian Happ. You have to say, like
that's true.
There's you and your wonderful butt can you can park it on the bench.
Is there anyone you would replace PCA with? Would you? Oh, yeah. Here's the wait. Would you sub out Aaron Judge for PCA right now? Like, obviously, Aaron Judge is having
if I had
season,
to,
but right. Are you doing that?
Yeah, probably. And I'm probably putting PCA in. I'm probably putting PCA in the 7th inning and then moving Judge. If you'll allow me to do that, then I'll do it that way.
No,
but
PCA is just not on the team.
Yeah. Oh, like, hey, would I swap them out right now? If I, I mean, you still have to say yes, right? It's Aaron Judge.
You have to say yes.
I love PCA, but you have to say yes.
You know what? We are being such homers. Of course you do that. Of course you have to do that. Aaron Judge is having like the greatest season in
ever
75 years. Like, I always think it's funny, by the way. I'm just going to chat a little bit here. So again, live pod, anything could happen. I'm just going to keep saying that. Whenever people say like, this is like the best season in 60 years, it's like, what happened 61 years ago? Like, was that a big season? Or are you just saying that because it feels like a long, like
who are you?
I said 75 years. I have no idea. I don't know. 1958. Like what year was that? I don't know what happened.
Stan Musial had an amazing year that Michael just keeps parked in his head.
Yeah, exactly. And I had another point and I don't remember it. So maybe we'll just end the pod there because there's pretty long already. Yeah.
Well, hope you folks have enjoyed this special live broadcast of the BN Cubs podcast brought to you by Ankin Law. Injury law made personal. 312-6-million. Call Howard and his friends if you need some help. Like I said, we might do this like intentionally in the future, and we'll give people a heads up. If we're doing it, we'll make sure that people know we're actually recording live. They can participate. This was just a little necessary while Addison is out, and we appreciate you. Make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing, and checking us out wherever you get your pods. We appreciate you. I'm Brett. That's Michael, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye. Oh, there's 2 clicks. It's not.